at 10:42 on a rainy Friday night. I stood outside my front door alone. My wife had promised she would be home. But her car was not in the driveway. Her phone was turned off. And something felt terribly wrong. I opened the front door slowly. The house was quiet and dark. Only the kitchen light was on. Our daughter Lily was upstairs sleeping. But someone was sitting in the living room. It was our babysitter, Sophie. Sophie stood when she saw me. Her face looked pale and frightened. I asked her where my wife was. She looked at me for several seconds. Then she slowly shook her head. She is not coming home. I thought I heard her wrong. What do you mean, not coming home? Sophie looked toward the stairs. Then she lowered her voice. She told me you would come tonight. She told me to wait for you. My heart started beating faster. I asked Sophie what had happened. She said my wife left 2 hours earlier. She had taken one small bag. She had left almost everything behind. Her clothes were still in the bedroom. Her passport was still in the drawer. Her favorite coat was still hanging there. Even her makeup was beside the mirror. But her wedding ring was gone. That small detail frightened me. My wife never removed that ring. Sophie reached into her bag. She pulled out a white envelope. My name was written on the front. I knew my wife's handwriting immediately. My hands began to shake. I opened it carefully. Inside was a short message. Do not look for me tonight. Take care of Lily for me. I read those words again and again. Then I noticed something else. There was a second sentence below. Please do not trust Daniel. I stopped breathing for a moment. Daniel was my older brother. My closest friend since childhood. The man I trusted most. I looked at Sophie. Why would she write his name? Sophie began to cry. I do not know, she whispered. But your wife was afraid. Afraid of your brother. Before I could ask another question, Lily appeared at the top of the stairs. She was holding her teddy bear. Her eyes were half closed. Daddy, she whispered, where is Mommy? I had no answer for her. I carried Lily back to her room. I told her Mommy was safe. I did not know if that was true. I only wanted her to feel calm. She looked at me quietly. Then she asked one question. Did Mommy take the red box? I looked at her in surprise. What red box? I asked. Lily hugged her teddy bear tighter. Mommy said I must not tell. Then she closed her eyes. I went back downstairs. Sophie was waiting in the kitchen. I asked her about the red box. She said she had never seen it. Then she suddenly remembered something. My wife hid something in the garage. We went outside together. Rain was hitting the windows hard. The garage was cold and dark. I searched every shelf and cabinet. Then I found an old photograph. It showed Daniel with Lily. The photograph looked normal. But something was written behind it. Keep Lily away from Daniel. My stomach tightened. I remembered my wife saying something similar. 3 weeks earlier, she had warned me. She had stood in our kitchen. Her voice had been very quiet. Something is wrong with Daniel. I had laughed because I trusted him. I told her she was imagining things. I told her to stop worrying. Now I hated those words. Sophie looked at me carefully. She tried to tell you before, she said. I nodded slowly. Yes. I did not listen. We continued searching the garage. Behind an old cabinet, I found a lock. I tried several keys from the house. None of them worked. Then Sophie remembered the envelope. There was a tiny silver key inside. The key opened the lock. Inside was a red metal box. My wife's hands had touched it recently. I opened it with shaking fingers. There were bank papers inside. And photographs of Daniel. There were also copies of emails. Most were between Daniel and my accountant. I read the first page. Then I read it again. Money had been moved from my company. Large amounts of money. But the money was not the worst part. There were documents with my signature. I had never signed those papers. Someone had copied my signature. Someone had opened accounts in my name. Someone had been preparing to blame me. I looked at Sophie. Why would Daniel do this? She did not answer. Then my phone rang. The caller was Daniel. I answered immediately. His voice sounded calm. Where are you? He asked. I asked him where my wife was. He became silent. Then he said, let her go. She has made her decision. I knew then that he was lying. I asked Daniel how he knew. That my wife had left voluntarily. He said she had told him. I asked when. He said that afternoon. But I knew that was impossible. My wife had not spoken to Daniel since the previous evening. I had seen her phone records. Something did not make sense. I asked Daniel about the documents. His voice suddenly became angry. He said I was making a mistake. He told me to stop asking questions. Then he said something strange. You never listen until it is too late. The call ended. I stared at my phone. That sentence reminded me of my wife. She had said almost the same thing. Not long before she disappeared. She had looked at me and whispered, one day you will understand. I had ignored her again. I returned to the red box. There was a small memory card inside. I put it into my laptop. The first recording was my wife's voice. She sounded tired and frightened. But she was trying to stay calm. I found the missing money, she said. It is not a mistake. Daniel is moving it through other accounts. He is using your name. I tried to tell you. But you did not believe me. I closed my eyes. I could hear the pain in her voice. Then she explained why she disappeared. Daniel had found out she knew. He had warned her to stay quiet. He had threatened to take Lily away. He did not say he would hurt Lily. He did not need to. He knew Lily was her greatest fear. He told her that if she accused him, he would make me believe she was unstable. He had already prepared fake messages. My wife had discovered those messages. She knew Daniel was building a story. He wanted me to believe she was lying. So she made a difficult choice. She disappeared before he could act. I stopped the recording. My eyes were full of tears. I finally understood something terrible. My wife had not left because she hated me. She left because she believed I would believe Daniel before her. Sophie was crying beside me. She said my wife had told her, "If he asks where I am, protect Lily." I asked Sophie why she stayed silent. She said my wife made her promise. She promised not to tell anyone. Then Lily came into the room. She was holding the silver key. She gave it to me. "There is another key," she whispered. "Mommy told me where it is." "Where?" I asked. Lily pointed toward the basement. My heart started racing again. We went downstairs together. Behind an old painting, we found another lock. Inside was a small black phone. It had only one saved recording. I pressed the recording button. At first, there was only silence. Then I heard Daniel's voice. He was talking to my wife. His voice sounded cold. He was no longer pretending to be kind. "You should have stayed quiet," he said. My wife asked what he wanted. He said he wanted the company. He said he had worked for years, while I received everything from our father. He said it was never fair. I remembered our childhood. Our father had started the company. When he became sick, he gave me control of the business. Daniel stayed as a manager. I thought he accepted that decision. I was wrong. Daniel had carried that anger for years. He believed our father had chosen me because I was the favorite son. He believed the company should be his. That anger had slowly become greed. The recording continued. Daniel told my wife he had evidence. He said he could make me look guilty. He had copied my signature. He had created false financial records. He had prepared everything carefully. Then my wife asked him something. "What happens if my husband believes me?" Daniel laughed. "He will not. You made sure of that. He trusts me more than he trusts you." Those words destroyed me. Because Daniel was right. I had trusted him. My wife had warned me. I had called her worried. I had called her jealous. I had called her afraid for no reason. The recording ended. But there was one final file. I opened it. My wife's voice returned. She sounded as if she was crying. "I am sorry, Lily. I am sorry, Daniel." Then she corrected herself. "I am sorry, my love. If you are hearing this, I had to leave before he found me. Please do not come alone." I stopped the recording. The room became completely silent. Then my phone received a message. It was from an unknown number. There was only one sentence. "Your wife is alive." My heart jumped. Another message appeared. "If you want to see her, come alone." I looked at Sophie. She told me not to go. I knew she was right. But I also knew something else. My wife was somewhere waiting for me. I called the police. I gave them the recordings. Then I showed them the message. They began tracing the number. The signal came from an old warehouse. It was less than 30 minutes away. I drove there with the police nearby. I did not know what I would find. But one thing was certain. I was finally listening to my wife. The warehouse was almost empty. Rain covered the windows. The front door was unlocked. I walked inside carefully. There were old boxes everywhere. Then I heard a voice. "Stop right there." It was Daniel. He stood in the shadows. My wife was behind him. Her hands were not tied. But she looked frightened. I wanted to run toward her. Daniel raised his hand. "Do not come closer." I stopped. I looked at my wife. She looked directly at me. For the first time in days, I knew she was alive. That was enough to make me cry. Daniel laughed quietly. "You should have stayed out of this." I told him it was over. He asked what I meant. I told him about the recordings. His face changed. For the first time, he looked afraid. Then he looked at my wife. She did not answer. I told him the police had everything. He stepped backward. Then he said something unexpected. "I never wanted her hurt." I looked at him. "Then why did you scare her?" He said he only wanted the company. He said he wanted what was his. He said our father had cheated him. He said I had taken everything. I told him that was not true. Our father had trusted me with the business. Daniel had agreed to work with me. He had earned money for years. He had a good life. But he wanted more. He became angry. "You always got more," he shouted. "More love. More trust. More money." Then he pointed at my wife. "Even she chose you." That was when I understood him. This was never only about money. Daniel wanted to prove that he was more important than me. He wanted to take away the things he believed I did not deserve. But he had gone too far. The police entered the warehouse. Daniel looked around in shock. He realized the building was surrounded. He dropped his phone. An officer arrested him. My wife finally walked toward me. I wanted to hug her. But I stopped. I remembered what I had learned. She needed to feel safe first. So I simply held out my hand. She took it. We stood there quietly. Then she whispered, "I am sorry I left." I shook my head. "No. I am sorry I did not listen." We returned home the next morning. Lily ran toward her mother. She held her tightly. My wife cried into her hair. I stood nearby and watched them. I had never felt so ashamed. The house looked exactly the same. The kitchen light was still there. The family photographs were still on the wall. Lily's toys were still everywhere. But I felt different. I finally saw what I had almost lost. My wife sat at the table. She looked exhausted. I asked her one question. Why did you not tell me everything? She looked down at her hands. Then she answered honestly. I tried. She told me about every warning. Every conversation about Daniel. Every time she asked me to check something. Every time I defended my brother. Every time I told her to relax. Then she said something painful. You did not choose Daniel over me. You simply believed him faster. That sentence broke my heart. I had no excuse. I had no answer. I remembered one night clearly. My wife had cried in the kitchen. She told me she felt unsafe. I had hugged her for a moment. Then I had told her that she was making a big problem. I thought I was calming her. I thought I was helping her. But I was not listening. I was ending the conversation. There was a difference. And I finally understood it. The investigation continued for weeks. The financial records proved Daniel's fraud. The recordings proved his threats. The copied signatures proved his plan. He could no longer blame my wife. He could no longer blame me. Daniel eventually admitted everything. He said he had planned the fraud because he believed the company was his. He said he hated being second. He said his anger had grown for years. But none of that excused him. My wife and I did not suddenly become perfect. We still had painful conversations. Sometimes she was angry. Sometimes I felt guilty. But we stopped hiding our feelings. We started listening before answering. Lily slowly became happy again. She started sleeping through the night. She stopped asking if Mommy would leave. One evening, she asked me something. Is Mommy staying this time? I looked at my wife. My wife smiled. I held Lily's hand. Yes, I said. But we are going to do something different. What? Lily asked. We are going to listen to each other. 3 months later, our family was slowly becoming normal again. The company survived the investigation. Daniel was facing serious legal trouble. My wife returned to work. Lily returned to school. But I kept one thing. The first message my wife sent me. The message that said, I think your brother is dangerous. I had saved it by accident. Now I could not delete it. I read my old reply. It said only, you are imagining things. Those 3 words hurt more than anything Daniel had done. Because I had written them. I had chosen not to listen. One evening, I showed my wife. She read the message quietly. Then she looked at me. I hated that message, she said. Not because you were angry. Because I felt invisible. I apologized again. She told me something important. She did not need me to be perfect. She needed me to take her seriously. She needed me to ask questions. She needed me to stand beside her. I understood then. Love is not only saying, I trust you. Sometimes love means saying, tell me what you are afraid of. And then staying long enough. to hear the answer. A week later, my wife asked me to drive somewhere. She wanted to visit the old lake house. It was the place where she had hidden before everything finally came to light. I agreed. We drove there together. The rain had stopped. The lake was calm. My wife stood beside the water. She looked peaceful. Then she asked me something. "Do you remember what Sophie said?" I smiled sadly. "She said you were not coming home." My wife nodded. "That was what I wanted you to believe." I looked at her. "Why?" "Because I did not know if I could come home safely." Her words stayed with me. She had not wanted to leave me. She had wanted to protect herself until she knew the truth was safe. That difference changed everything. I took her hand. "I thought I was losing you," I said. She looked at me. "You almost did." I nodded. "I know. And I will never forget that." 1 year after that terrible night, we had dinner together as a family. Lily was laughing at the table. My wife was telling her a story. I watched them both. For a moment, everything felt peaceful. I remembered the night she disappeared. The rain. The empty driveway. The babysitter's frightened face. The envelope in my hand. The words I could not understand. "She is not coming home." At the time, I thought those words meant my family was finished. I thought my wife had left me. I thought someone had taken her. But I was wrong. She had not stopped loving me. She had stopped feeling heard. She had tried to warn me. She had tried to protect our daughter. And when I failed to listen, she protected them both herself. That was what broke me. Not the stolen money. Not the copied signatures. Not even my brother's betrayal. What broke me was remembering how many times she had asked for help. And how many times I had said, "Everything will be fine." Sometimes those words sound loving. But sometimes they are not enough. Sometimes someone does not need comfort. They need you to listen. My wife came home that night. Not because everything was perfect. Not because the past had disappeared. She came home because we had changed. We had learned to speak honestly. And we had learned to listen. Lily ran into the kitchen. She was holding an old photograph. It was the photograph from the garage. She asked why Daniel was in it. I looked at my wife. She smiled gently. We told Lily the simple truth. Sometimes people make terrible choices. Sometimes people hide things. Sometimes families go through difficult times. But we always tell the truth. And we always listen to each other. Lily nodded seriously. Then she hugged her mother. I watched them together. And I remembered the envelope. The message that had terrified me. The message that started everything. Do not look for me tonight. Take care of Lily for me. Tomorrow, you will understand everything. I thought those words were goodbye. They were not. They were a final request. Please listen to me. Please protect our daughter. Please understand why I had to leave. My wife had been asking for something very simple. She wanted to be heard. So if someone you love ever tells you they are afraid, do not laugh at them. Do not immediately tell them they are wrong. Ask them what happened. Then listen carefully. Because sometimes the biggest betrayal does not come from a stranger. Sometimes it comes from family. And sometimes the person you trust most is the person who hides the truth. But there is another lesson too. Never let pride become louder than love. Never let trust become blind. And never make someone feel alone when they are asking for your help. Because one day, they may stop asking. That rainy night, the babysitter told me something terrifying. She is not coming home. I thought my wife was gone forever. But she eventually came home. And when she did, I finally understood. She had never wanted to leave our family. She had wanted to save it. And the hardest truth I ever discovered was not that my brother betrayed me. It was that my wife had warned me long before I was ready to listen. Sometimes people do not leave because they stopped loving you. Sometimes they leave because they are afraid. You will never understand their pain. And sometimes